morning, everyone. I'm here with Christine Romano from my office. We're going to be discussing some things that we've kind of piggyback on some of the things we talked about in the past. Look at some of the trends, a little bit of that, but we're going to basically focus today on marketing and some of the things that we see, some of the things that we think commercial owners should be expecting when it comes to a prospective sale of a commercial property. So let's take a little beginning step and say, well, first of all, we'd like to say we're doing this from a new place.
Yes,
right?
very exciting.
4001 Highland Boulevard. Let's delve right into the questions, and we have some of them. But one of them is we had discussed earlier about marketing of properties. So
yes, and I think one of the larger ends of the topic, things that we were discussing earlier, is why there are properties, commercial real estate properties, that are up for lease or are for sale and they're not moving. With this stable and great market, things should not be stagnant.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the things we had a really long discussion about. One of the things that you principally want to do is you want to look at the type of marketing that goes into a property. And I think a lot of that's one big piece. And I think what happens is all too often we don't understand why, or a commercial property owner might understand why the importance of the marketing piece of their commercial project or commercial property is not being delivered in a way that brings the best audience to a property.
Right.
Now, obviously, if I had a whiteboard, I could kind of explain that a little bit better. One of the things is to understand that in the marketing of these commercial properties, value is always driven. We've talked about this even in the real estate industry in general. Value is driven by the forces of how much attention you could draw. I can't emphasize that enough. And I think one of the things is it's specifically really gearing toward what that person who may not know Staten Island, who might not know the area, and how to portray that to somebody could be as far away as the other side of the world. I mean, we've had that happen. So one of the things you want to really look at is how is this going to be marketed in a way that draws the best audience and draws attention to the property itself. I mean, one of the things, and we've taken some time.
I was going to say, I think we should utilize the example of the one listing that you and I had looked at. And in the listing, there were one photograph of the location.
Yes.
And zero information.
Basically, the description doesn't it underscores its purpose.
Right, I don't know what I would put there. If I was a buyer, I wouldn't know what kind of business what would work well in that spot.
And I think really it's the combination now, being in the era that we're in, there are so many ways to reach an audience. The problem is understanding how to reach the audience.
Right.
Some people, they confuse marketing as it being mass, or mass marketing is what tries to market. Now, more or less, it's focused marketing based on what these people would be interested in purchasing, and who's best suited to do that. Now more than ever, with digital technology, narrowing down these types of focus is becoming a lot simpler. But it does take an understanding on the part of the people who are listing it to understand that. So, when you're selling a commercial property, one of the things that we have to take a good hard look at is how do we attain the biggest and best audience? This is great. Everybody has plenty of connections. And one of the things that is and we've gone back and forth about this, they're piped into a group of people, or they know people who are investors.
Yes.
But that pool, and I talk about pools, that pool is very limited in a sense, because today you could reach as many as 60, 75,000 people from all over the world, but you just need to know how to do that correctly. And I think one of the things that, since we've looked at this, is trying to establish that that's what we do, is try to look at that audience and say, hey, we need to find a niche, not only a niche, we need to broaden that demographically.
Right.
We need to broaden that by region, because one of the things with commercial properties is that it's not limited to just Staten Island. It's not
No.
limited to just New York City.
Correct.
It's a global marketplace.
That's
And
right.
in that global marketplace, it's understanding how are we going to reach these consumers. So
I also look at the numbers not only for that reach, to have the ability to work with different consumers and different buyers, but also gives us ability to find more successful locations to work with. Because it's not just buying a building and, oh, I own a building. No, there's a lot more behind that, and making it stay long-term and maintaining the success of your purchase. So when we have a larger pool of people to network with, I think it gives us more ability to work and get the location to maintain.
well, there's a
And
lot.
build.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of factors involved with the sale of commercial property. One of them being how pricing does impact
Yes.
the marketing as well, and how experienced the person in doing that is really the key here.
Absolutely.
So, and unfortunately, I think in some of our experiences we've seen well, I know a real estate person, they're a great friend, and that's great. In the commercial market, there's different ways, either by cap rate or by
the income approach, yes.
Yeah,
That's,
these are different dynamics that sometimes, if they're not clearly understood, and they say, well, I need this for my property. The biggest problem becomes is just like everything else is, well, I've seen this here before. It's obvious that nobody wants this.
Right.
That nobody wants this. Why should I pay this if this is what's been hanging around? So there's definitely we have to build things back. I think the one clear thing about real estate and every other industry imaginable where there's marketing involved, I don't think anybody's going to go to the fruit stand and purchase the fruit that looks like it's been there the longest.
no.
And we simplify it because it needs to be that simplified.
Right.
Because I think one of the things that people don't understand is it seems to get into every other industry has yet to really encapsulate the real estate industry for why things sit for an extremely long time, and these things are sitting, and they're.
But don't get me wrong, it sometimes does play a factor with the seller. The seller
if you're being
sometimes.
told what you want,
Exactly.
absolutely. I think one of the things is understanding that being told what you want to hear is not exactly what you need to hear.
That's right.
And consequently, and we got to say the downside of holding inventory. And I'm going to talk about different things, even in retailing in general. Stuff that doesn't move off the shelves has to be discounted at a greater rate.
Okay.
Okay, so if you just take from the simplest of merchandising of any real retail product, on a smaller scale, of course, what happens is the same thing. Is anybody who walks to a rack at a place and has been there several times, they say, "Geez, why is these items not selling? I'm not going to want it either."
Right.
It extends to being that simple. It does extend to how it is marketed, though, because I think one of the things is there's not enough appeal generated for the purpose.
Right.
So we're here on Highland Boulevard. There'll be a lot of properties that go for sale. However, the uniqueness of the property, what types of aspects that they need to address in the marketing are not fully being understood. And
I agree. I think that a lot of that information is not being disclosed, so it's not attracting the right parties to want to purchase it. And I think that there are so many of these listings, and we come across them all the time. Because obviously we get buyers and we have the locations that they're warranting, so we come across these listings, and ironically, there are a lot of companies that don't see the way we do.
Well, I think it really comes down to what you have to accomplish that mission as a unit. And some of it's going to be things that you're going to want to hear. Some of those things are going to be what you may not like to hear. Unfortunately, it's the things that you may not like to hear
Yes.
needs to be part of the equation into curing the ill that's failing to sell a property.
But I find even sometimes if I have someone that wants to price their property a little above the norm, it's not that hard of a system to, if you give the right explanation to the cause. Like if you're saying, listen, I'm just not gonna, put it at that price, that doesn't work. You have to give an explanation behind it and say, listen, there are different ways of modeling this. And if you go above and beyond and you don't get the right sector, you're gonna sit there long on the market and you're wasting my time, your time, and everyone else. And the goal is to hit once and hit it right. So there are people who are receptive to that, and I think it's just the way that you come about and how you come across to inform them what is needed, because this is what we're here for, right? We are the ones that, we sleep, eat, and drink real estate. We watch the market. We work with consumers, we work with buyers. So we get all the input and all the output.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is and we haven't touched on this in these exact terms, we have touched on it, but we do see a boom in commercial real estate locally.
Yes.
Okay, and there's some fits and starts with this, and I think the other thing is I think some of the policy making in regards to how we're developing this real estate is key to understanding how to best create a better marketplace for Staten Island in general for commercial real estate. And I think one of the things that we had discussed in brief, but we did discuss the fact that, the growth of the commercial properties on Staten Island, you have the large retail space, there's almost like if I build this, people are going to come.
Right.
And I think and not every single development that we're seeing, I could see some long-term systemic problems based on what our demographics are here. And the problem, and you see, I think one of the things to understand, I think even for development companies that are considering that, and even when they say, well, what's the competence of the real estate companies involved in these larger developments and how we could play a role in advising them
Absolutely.
on really what's the best course of actions based on research. And I think most people don't realize is that there are better companies at this than others. We do a healthy approach to understanding what's moving the markets demographically, and because what'll happen is that I think one of the greatest things in Staten Island is that we have a lot of large retail type development coming to Staten Island.
Yes.
The problem is that is it in fact, is everybody on the same page as far as how the demographics are going to be using these locations? You have things like the internet taking place. You have smaller mom and pops in the mix. However, one of the biggest things is that I think from a growth perspective, population growth, Staten Island has really slowed in its population growth, and that was a lot due to the down zonings of many areas. Right, some of them right, some of them probably not so right. Because one of the things I think we had talked about is why places like Great Kills, we see so many vacancies in and around these town centers, and that we need to be more in tune. And I think there are commercial real estate development companies out there that are considering Staten Island. One of the things is advising them about some of the processes that are in place that are being considered, that they're going to have to really look at to make an effective decision on how big a retail space they want to build,
Right.
how fast they want to build that out. And I don't see that. I find that's the thing that almost, I think there's such a disconnect between having the right information, demographic, if this is going to work. Is this going to work for the retail level consumer here? And is there enough here?
Yeah, but someone had
establish
to, someone had to come up with the formula to think that this would work. Or
That's what we'd like to
the
think.
perception of why it would work. And I think that's something that, if you understand the concept, or maybe we don't, and that's what we're getting at. We don't understand what's behind the scenes in coming up with this.
With the grand plan.
Exactly.
There's no grand plan.
Right.
I think that's the problem here, is there's no grand plan for this. And what happens is that we think we have a grand plan. It's being found out in spaces that, and now you're starting to see, well, I can't give you store statistics for Home Depot, for instance.
Right.
But we've seen the growth of Home Depot. Now, at one time, South Shore residents would travel up north to the Forest Avenue location. In Bricktown Center, they developed the other, a brand new Home Depot. The interesting thing is that they actually worked counterintuitively to work together. So because what happened is that lost the market share because it was really just they're just taking the same consumer base and moving into a different location. Now this location isn't as healthy because of that.
Right.
Now this is part of the planning process that we need, and I think that's one great example of why an influx of too much retail doesn't understand how one impacts the other in terms
Absolutely.
of the shifting of the demographics. And I think one of the things do real estate companies like ours have the capacity to handle that kind of service or and make
volume.
them understand
Right.
what these types of things, what we see as far as a trend overall. There is just an over-reliance on, a lot of companies will do studies. The difficult thing about
And surveys.
studies is that if the study is done outside of Staten Island and doesn't understand the flow,
Correct.
fortunately, as myself being a 40-plus year resident here, which makes me a long-time Staten Islander. I don't know about yourself. How long has it been?
I'm actually originally from Brooklyn, and I'm living on Staten Island for like 16 years.
16 years.
Yes.
Okay. So the evolution of Staten Island and how it's really moved along is something we understood. One of the things is when I had sat on the Mayor's Growth Management Task Force, which looked at these complex problems about creating a better future landscape of development. These one of the things that were raised is that the mixed-use type of development definitely needs to play a bigger role in the success of the business community and the commercial real estate development here. So I think these are the types of things that you need to look at when you're looking to sell a property. It's making sure people who are doing it understand conceptually what's going to happen here.
Right.
Because I think the variables here are much different. They exist in Manhattan by neighborhood, and you can get a better neighborhood sense. Some of them a little bit more based on which street they're on. Here it is almost a microscope type of approach.
Well, this is like suburban.
You can get a location could be superior by one standard and go 2 blocks and it's a completely different standard. It's really dependent, and some people believe, one of the things we had talked about was A.F. Bennett, right?
Yes.
And some people said, well, we had talked about the parking situation being what it was. So
yes, they put valet there.
Right.
Which is great.
But in essence, what many people would just assume to be a failure, because of that, was being remedied
Yes.
by using another means, and still wildly successful.
Absolutely.
The product or service still drives the people to the location, I think, and that's understanding that the location is important almost as much as even the availability of park. Parking does not necessarily make or break an established place that is targeting the right demographic, and people are drawing themselves there. And I could talk about many places. That Angelina's restaurant is a great example. the quality drove the people to the location that she's
Right.
now at. Even though it was limited there, she was able to expand, but the following still came along with that.
Absolutely.
Parking and space was limited there. It's understanding, it's really understanding how to approach the sale and what do we have here in the possible location. So that's one of the things we need to express to the people who are watching, that if they are selling commercial real estate, these are the types of things that we do look into and make sure that in the pricing model that's being created, they're actually getting something that it's a bona fide strategy. It's not just okay, this is what you want, and we'll take a photo of it and put it out on the internet and hope for the best.
I also think it's important that people understand it's okay to interview everyone that comes in the door to market. You know, if you are looking into real estate companies, it's okay. You should call more than one
I
and
think they
compare
should look
notes.
at videos like this.
Oh, that they should,
Because
yes.
we're actually communicating about it, and that's, it's somewhat of a taboo. I
It is, I
can't
know.
explain the lack of trying to express why there's some.
What's the nature of, if you don't give it to me, it will sit? You know, or I have someone in my pocket, I'm gonna sell it right away. There's always that initiative that makes the consumer eager to just move forward, but maybe not with being as cautious as they should be, because it's your property. And like you said, you get to market it, and if you do it right, it works out. It's very successful. If you don't market correctly, it could create this level of, maybe there is a discounted situation going on, or maybe there's something unattractive about it. So rather than create the unforeseen or the thought process, let's make it a healthy listing. Let's make all the variables be present and put everything that is necessary to be successful in selling or leasing and getting the right buyer to come across.
Yeah, those are all great points, and it's something that obviously, if you're in that process, we'd always love to speak to them, or you out there.
Come interview us and see the differences of what we can do.
Yeah.
Try us out.
So there are, I'm just going to give you a little overview of some of the marketing type of stuff that you should expect. I mean, one of the things, and we're going to talk about the future of the marketing of commercial real estate, which is, and everybody's familiar with drone technology
Yes.
and things like that, that now people are going to be able to get real-time perspectives of traffic patterns, traffic volumes, things like that. One of the things that we do have planned, and a lot of things that we have planned is to begin to use and monitor traffic patterns, and to a degree we could actually do that using drone technology, which then we could transmit pretty much. Now they're starting to do it in real time, so you literally could actually see traffic patterns when you call the office.
Oh, wow.
Pretty soon that's going to be the future of real estate, which is understanding, well, I need to know what kind of traffic pattern and what the place is. And soon enough, with the advent of new technologies, it's going to be able to provide much
Just in
deeper
this
stuff.
location, I mean, what's the traffic pattern here?
I mean, yeah,
Right where we are located.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's you do the homework on statistics like traffic patterns, volumes, where these people are actually coming from and to. Traffic patterns and volumes, they also have some variables in them. Obviously, we couldn't get into every single one of them, about what their frequency is and their purpose of their travel along that route.
Yes.
So it depends on a few different factors. So it's one of the things, depending on what type of places would be suited for a specific traffic pattern, is something we look at.
Right.
I think it's, just here, one of the things, even when we selected a commercial place, one of the things was that, we carry a little bit of a .com approach to things, having a little street location right here in one of the busiest intersections on Staten Island was key to understanding that a little bit more grounded approach to that we are really a company that exists right here in not in outer space, but right here in the community. So it's all part of the process. So today we touched on a couple of important topics involving commercial real estate, some of the marketing topics, things like how marketing should be approached, why you should be considering, well, you should be considering us, I think, right?
Absolutely.
And some other key factors in understanding how marketing impacts the real estate sales in commercial. And a lot of people don't understand it here. And a lot of people from outside the borough still don't understand how commercial real estate market moves. We're going to bring a little bit of sense of gravity toward that situation and start developing new tools and stuff like that for commercial owners to kind of get a better understanding of what it is that's going to be happening with commercial real estate. And that will be part of our side decks platform. I don't want to forget to mention that because it's an important piece.
Very
piece
important.
that's always going to be in development. And as these things come online, we'll be providing new products for people to better keep communication about their property value, especially in commercial real estate, and how to create dialogue almost in a Facebook-like fashion, which is an interesting concept in real estate. But I do want to thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Licciardello. I am co-owner of realestateSINY.com. They're right here on, what is it, 4001? Yeah, it's 4001. It's not the year, it's the place. But
Highland Boulevard, by the way.
Highland Boulevard. And this is Christine Romano, who handles our commercial real estate at Real Estate SINY as a specialist in commercial real estate sales across Staten Island and even in the other boroughs. If you can believe that, we do extend past Staten Island. And you'll be seeing more of that as well.
Thank you again.
Thank you again, and we'll see you the next time when we have our next segment.